welcome back everyone. This is now our fourth video. This one we're going to be talking about characters and inspiration. We're still discussing Fallen Torment. Stay tuned for the next one. We're going to be discussing passion and possibly a little bit about what might come after that. So we know you must get the question, what was your inspiration for writing this? Over and over again. So we're not going to ask that question. We're going to ask something different. My question for you is, when did you first become interested in angel mythology? And how did you know that you had a story that was sort of tied in with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and it happened probably at the same, shortly after the first one followed the other. I was in a graduate program. I happened to be sitting in on a class about reading the Bible as literature. And it's a really different way of looking at the Bible than I'd ever considered before. So it's kind of like reading it as if you read a narrative in an English class, and dissecting the plot and the characters and all of that. So in Genesis, there's a part of the story where there are angels who looked down from heaven and saw mortal women and fell in love with them, and eventually chose them over heaven, were cast out of heaven because of it. And so that was really the genesis of my story too. This line. And this idea that there could be a love like that would draw somebody down and make them really give up everything. I mean, it's quite a sacrifice to give up heaven for the pursuit of this love. So that was when I knew I had a story, because that conflict and that complicated romance just sort of thrilled me, the idea of it. It led me to Luce's character. Luckily, I was in this class with this wonderful divinity scholar, and she opened up the world to angelology with me. And I'm sure in her very distinguished academic career, she had never been asked to help somebody write a big old romance novel, but she was really, really giving with me, and we had a lot of meetings where she would give me a huge list of books to read. I would go check them out and come back and talk to her about it. And she was really the one who kind of gave me the courage to pull this piece from this book and pull this piece from the Bible and pull this piece from Paradise Lost. And even though other pieces conflicted with what I was starting to compile, she was the one who allowed me to say, this is my mythology. It exists because I've created it out of all these little pieces of history and literature and theology. And who cares about the rest? There are a lot of contradictions. There's a lot of conflicting bits of storytelling in the Bible and out of the Bible. And so I had to shape it into something that worked for my story. So that's where it all began.
And just going back for a moment, what you were saying sort of with the nugget of inspiration, the story of a mortal woman and an angel, that's got to be interesting also, because Luce she's a flawed character, and she wouldn't be interesting if she wasn't. So, even contrasting, a flawed mortal woman with heaven has got to be,
Right.
So that's something that I particularly found interesting about that little nugget. Another interesting. Are the characters that you built in these stories, are any of them built upon people who you knew in real life?
They're sort of Frankenstein characters, all of them. I mean, I'm sure I'm in each of them. A little bit of me and is in all of them, and probably a little bit of everyone that I know and love is in all of them. Specifically, though, Luce's character originally was based physically on my oldest friend. And so I think I do this physically a lot when I'm just starting with a character, just so that I can always remember, the way, I know exactly the way her hair looks in this light, and I know exactly the way her teeth are shaped, and I know, all these little details that can really give you a full picture of somebody. So I drew on somebody who was very close to me to do that. And then, of course, as Luce did things and met people and, experienced stuff that I hadn't anticipated, she totally veered into her own character. And physically, too, she changed a bit. But now I can picture her and I can see her, and it all began with that one, specific person to think about.
So we have two questions from our teen readers. And the first one continues along with the whole idea of characters. And Lola from Hartford, Connecticut wanted to know whether or not you envisioned yourself as any of the characters.
There's definitely some Luce in me, but I think if I had to say, I think I'm maybe a combination between Penn, who was Luce's very grounded, somewhat dorky friend in Fallen, and Arian, who's the total nut job. So I think
Polar opposites.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have, and also I think people play different roles with different people in their lives. So I think with some of my friends and some of my family, I could be more like Penn, and some of my friends and some of my family, I could be more like Arian, and probably I'm like Luce half the time. So yeah, I really think I'm in all of them.
Did you have any favorite secondary characters?
Arian's my favorite to write. I mean, she comes so naturally to me, and I think she comes in at moments when the story can feel to me like very heavy and emotional, and it needs a breath of air, sort of. So when I get to bring in Arian and have her crack some jokes, it's fun, and it happens really quickly and really easily. She's a good one for me. I like her.
She's a bit of a she seemed to be in Fallen, a bit of a wild card, so I can see why that would be sort of a fun one. Another question from the team reader, Lauren from Franklin Lakes,
Nice.
New Jersey. She wanted to know whether or not you believed in angels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I thought too much about this before I started writing it, but the more I've gotten into it, the word that I would use is that I'm open. I've never seen an angel in my life, but I think they can exist. I think I've heard a lot of stories from people, especially with the series out. People tell me a lot of incredible stories about angels, so I'm certainly open to the idea of them.
Is there a message or a theme in your novels that you would like for your readers to grasp?
I think the message has to do with love and being in love and letting yourself fall in love. And once you're in love, I think that the message between Luce and Daniel is one of sort of perseverance. You know, their relationship is a great challenge to Luce at times, but she knows that ultimately it's worth it. And I think when you get that feeling that something is worth sticking with and struggling through, whether it's love or your college applications or whatever it is, I think it's perseverance and sticking with something that you believe in.
I can definitely see that. I'm actually only halfway through Torment, but I'm loving it. And a couple of scenes ago was when Luce and Daniel sort of spoiler alert, they just have a little bit of a tiff. Nothing too serious, but it's definitely relatable. And I can, I would just wonder what it's like writing a character who's in love with an angel, and I can imagine that would be, the conflict it's already built in right there.
Right. And I think those moments when I'm writing about their struggles, I guess sometimes I almost forget that he's an angel. I mean, I know that one of the reasons that their love is so strong is because of the choices that both of them have made, having to do with the fact that he's not immortal. He's a very special case. But they fight over things like her dyeing her hair. They fight over things like burnt toast, the things that you and we always fight about with our, boyfriends or husbands or whatever it is. So I try to think, and I'm trying to make the angel characters and the demon characters just as flawed and complicated as you would treat any real human character.
And I think that's definitely how it works really well, because I'm in that scene and I was like, oh my gosh, he's an angel. Luce, come on. But you understand why she's upset. You totally get it. So it's definitely, you really fall into it. So that's it for this segment. One more to go. Thank you, everybody, for joining. In the next one, we're going to be talking about the rest of the series, Passion and possibly Rapture, and then also just paranormal literature in general.
Great.